China announced that they'd recognize esports pros and operators as an actual profession. This is good news, but China has been flaky at best when it comes to esports because their country censors so much media. This is the same country that in December created the Online Gaming Ethics Review Committee, or OGRE Committee for short. This is another censorship organization that decides which games are suitable for the Chinese market and which games are unsuitable. OGRE reviewed their first 20 games, and unsurprisingly, not a single one passed inspection. Out of the 20 games, 11 were found requiring some form of censorship, while the other 9 were completely prohibited from sales in China. So, what games didn't make the cut? On the banned list, we have Fortnite, PUBG, and H1Z1. All of these games have been called out for containing blood and gore. Now, granted, I haven't played H1Z1 in a couple of months, but last I checked, PUBG was the only game on that list that had anything close to resembling blood, with their little blood clouds when you shoot someone. Now, we have a clip of the blood and gore from PUBG, so to those of you with weak stomachs, please avert your eyes for a moment. Disgusting. So those were some examples of the games that are completely prohibited from China. As for the 11 games that require corrective changes, we've got Overwatch, League of Legends, World of Warcraft, and Diablo on that list. Now, funnily enough, Diablo wasn't picked out for blood and gore, but an inharmonious chat, which is really just the icing on the cake. They're basically saying that Diablo's online chat is too inappropriate for children. I play Diablo 3 every once in a while, and I can promise you, you couldn't pay someone to talk to you in that game. For starters, good luck finding someone in a public game in Diablo 3. It's essentially a single-player game pretending to be a multiplayer game. Secondly, unlike Fortnite and PUBG, Diablo wasn't under review for blood and gore, so I'm curious if China's OGRE Committee played these games at all, because their logic is completely senseless. So, China is putting a majority of esports games on the chopping block right now. The other thing to mention is that those were only the first 20 games that were reviewed by the OGRE Committee. I get the impression that Dota 2, Counter-Strike, and many others might also have their days numbered before requiring some sort of censorship. On top of that, there are ongoing tournaments for esports right now in China. The most obvious example is the League of Legends Pro League, or the LPL, a nearly 3-month-long event hosted in China. And by the looks of it, this is clearly not some underground venue. This is hosted in a mid-sized stadium of people playing a game that has been dubbed inappropriate for the country, yet clearly there is no censorship being undertaken to broadcast this to thousands of viewers. Needless to say, there are exceptions to the rules and ways around them, but it just goes to show how poorly China is handling the esports industry. They don't want to see video game violence, but they're perfectly okay with profiteering off of the live events. So from everything I've mentioned, you'd probably figure that China hates esports and is purposefully trying to restrict their growth, right? Well, no, not exactly. This episode started off with the recent news of officially recognizing esports players as an actual profession, but they announced last November that they're also creating an esports town in Hangzhou, and they're spending over $280 million on it. They're investing bucket loads into an esports future, claiming that this town would have hotels and attractions similar to a theme park like Disney World. With all that being said, I don't want to make any large predictions about China and esports. The only thing I'm sure about is that they're going to continue to simultaneously promote and limit the growth of video games in their country. Month to month, China has something new to announce, and it's essentially a coin toss whether it'll be in favor of or against esports. I can't even decide how to end this episode because it's equal parts positive and negative. No, you know what? I know what to say. China, you need to